morning, Pointe. This is Pastor Allen, and I wanted to give you a little visual update of what's going on here behind the scenes at Pointe. This is behind the little visual setup in the sanctuary here, and you may not be able to see all that well with just the little stage lights we got going on back here, but as you can see, this is where the baptismal would have been, and the doors and everything. So we've got that, some new wall put over it. My wife's been working on mudding these walls, so it's coming along slowly but surely. But I just wanted to give you a glimpse about that, and just remind you that even though it's still our date we're looking at now is sometime in July to really make it and install a lot of these upgrades, the day is coming. So we're excited about that. We're excited for future at Pointe, all that's happening here, and especially with how we've been blessed with the opportunity to do some of these renovations. So it's going good, and we're excited around here. Hey, here's some announcements going on this week and in the future. So first thing I wanted to say, since I'm the youth pastor and I have the floor today, is that again, like you might have heard on Sunday, we have a problem. It's a good problem to have, but we have a problem. We have so many teens going with us on the mystery mission trip that we don't have enough space for all of our luggage and all of our people to go just in our two vans. So we know this was a possibility. We estimated that we'd be okay, but we had so much interest at the last second. So again, good problem to have. We're not going to tell anyone they can't come if they want to. So I'm excited that we'll have a group of, I believe it's 24 teens going. So we do need, I don't want there to be any miscommunication, we need some sponsors in the form of, we need at least one van driver. So maybe it's you and your spouse or someone wanting to come. But we do need someone to drive an extra van that will be carrying all of our luggage in it. It's just a cargo van, a normal 15-passenger size van, just like our other two. But we do need someone 25 or older, at least one person, to join us. Really, it would be good to go ahead and have another adult presence or two there anyway with us, just because of the size of our group. But that is a need that we do have. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and we'd love to have you join us on our trip. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. Something else going on, VBS, that's coming up in late July, and that seems far away, but it would help us a lot if you were able to let us know ahead of time if you plan on joining us, if your kids plan on joining us. So there's ways for you to sign up, to get your kids signed up on our Facebook page and our newsletter. We're eventually going to get that added to our website as well. But if you'll do that, and also be watching out here pretty soon in the foyer for ways to help us with supplies. There'll be some list you can help provide there. Pastor Millie's going to organize that here in the weeks to come. Next thing I wanted to tell you about is later in June, June 26th, that's a Saturday, we're going to take an all-church trip to Assateague Island. That's going to be, again, June 26th, Saturday. It's going to be at 3 o'clock. That's a tentative time. I'll give you more information about that later, or Pastor Larry will. But we're going to be leaving them. We're going to spend the afternoon and evening there on the beach, just on the sand. We'll probably do a cookout of some sort, doing hot dogs and everything. So that'll be a lot of fun. Be sure to plan that date, June 26th, all-church trip to Assateague. Hey, there's one more big thing that's going on, and that is this Sunday is graduation Sunday. So seniors, graduates, I hope you're listening to this, and if not, I hope whoever's watching this will tell your seniors to go watch this. But this Sunday, again, we're going to recognize our seniors in the second service, the 10:30 service. We'll mention them in the first one as well, but we're going to make sure to have our seniors who are able to come there at the second service to pray with them, to recognize them, all that they've achieved. But I wanted to share a brief devotional, if I could, with you all, especially for, again, the graduates this morning. But I planned on doing this with some of our more seniors, but our seniors are just so busy these days. Imagine that, with all their parties and last-minute things. And so I wanted to read from you, well, first remind you of a verse you've probably heard before, and that is Jeremiah 29:11. And if you haven't heard it before, or if it doesn't come to mind, I'll share it with you briefly. It says, "For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope." Now this is probably a verse, again, that you've heard before, or maybe seen stitched on a pillow or something like that, and it's a verse that's commonly, recited or said or remembered because it's something we can hold on to as God's promise for, God is for us, God's not against us. God's plan for us is to give us a hopeful future, a future filled with hope, not to harm us. And it's a good reminder, especially in difficulty, maybe changing circumstances. But I always like to provide a little context anytime we're just reading one verse, just because I think it's always helpful. Sometimes, especially, as you know, verses can kind of be misunderstood in varying degrees if they're just taken out of context. But I think the context of this passage is especially helpful for us. So this again is in the book of Jeremiah, and so it's the prophet Jeremiah speaking on behalf of God to those who are being exiled into Babylon. And so this is God's people who, briefly, to give you a scope of the narrative, it's basically, God's people have been disobedient. They've turned from God. And Jeremiah is ultimately the one saying, this is kind of on you, but this is my doing. So now you were in the promised land, but now you're being delivered into the hands of another nation, into Babylon. So now they're being exiled into another land. They're being taken away from the promised land that was once theirs. For many of them, for maybe all of them, I'm sure they feel depressed, discouraged. They feel like maybe God's turned their back on them. But then here's Jeremiah speaking on behalf of God. And surrounding this text is not just this verse that says, I have the plans for you to give you hope in the future. But before that, God instructs his people to do a list of things. He instructs them to, for example, to build houses there in Babylon, to live with them, to plant, eat whatever they produce, to marry, to have kids, to be fruitful, to pray on their behalf, X, Y, Z. So there's all these commands to essentially be God's people in Babylon. There's all these commands to live life, to do what you're going to do, maybe kind of carry on life as you would in Jerusalem, but to do that now in Babylon. And so what God's ultimately saying here is, yes, you've been exiled. This is part of the plan I have for you. But I want you to, in this part of your life, to be my people there. I want you to pray for them. I want you to be a means of peace for them. I want you to just do life there with them. Join the people. And I think this kind of ties in well for our seniors, our graduates, because maybe we're not going off to college because it's a sort of judgment issue, or we're not going off to get this job here or do something else because God's handed us over in this situation. But there is some similarities in that there is a change and shift of being in a different location. There is this sense and shift of they're no longer in the place of what was once home. And so for many of our seniors, I know they're being displaced, they're being moved to different places, and there's a lot of, anxiety surrounding that. There's a lot of unknowns surrounding that. And I think it's important to remember here the promise that God gives us and the context of his commandments to be my people in this new land. So seniors, graduates, all of Cross Point really, I want you to hear this word this morning and remember God's promises for you, that he is giving you and has a plan for a hope-filled future for you. But also to remember that wherever you're at, whatever area of life you're in, maybe it's a very difficult one. Maybe seniors especially, you're going off to a new area, to a new job, a new situation, and it seems very adverse at first. It seems very difficult, very challenging. The promise that God has for you remains the same. God is going to give you a hope-filled future and has no plans at all to harm you. I hope to see you all this Sunday for, again, our graduation Sunday, and can't wait to see you then.